Mike Sando told you yesterday the NFL doesn't think Jordan Love is a tier 1 quarterback. So what is it going to take to get him there, and why can he do it? Tyler Dunne from Go Long joins me on the show today to explain why he believes not only will Jordan Love become a tier 1 quarterback, he will be one of the all-time greats.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number 1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Tyler Dunne on the show today. He wrote a piece for Go Long about why Jordan Love can be an all-time great. And he talks to people close to Jordan Love, players, coaches, analysts, former general managers. And does the name Tom Brady come up in the story? Yes. Does it come up in our conversation? Yes. Are some people going to get mad at this? Yes. That's fine. Here's me and Ty. Joining me now, our old pal, Tyler Dunne from Go Long. You can find him, check him out. golongtd.com is the Substack. Ty, it's great to be with you. I'm not going to let you just take a victory lap this whole podcast this time. No, I might. No, the reason I wanted to have you on, and it's such perfect. I didn't even intend to do this. It just worked out. In fact, I talked to you before I knew Mike Sando was going to come on with the QB tiers, but it ends up being perfect because we had Sando on yesterday talking about where Jordan Love fits in the NFL hierarchy. And you had written this piece a little while ago, couple 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. Let's see, August 6th. So 3 weeks ago now, about Jordan Love and where he can get. And that's what I wanted to pick your brain on today, because you were right. Jordan Love, inspired pick by the Packers. I'm going to give you your flowers for that. I will always do that. But now there's this next step that he has to take to get to where his talent says he can get to. I love the opening anecdote of this story. Steve Calhoun, right before he signs this historic deal, he goes out and absolutely flushes a workout. Tell me about how this came together and what you can provide as terms of color on this story.
Always appreciate the opportunity, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Great to be here. Yeah, I think that workout, it's part of the reason I love that workout is there's no video footage of it. There's like this mysterious element to the last time that Jordan Love was working with Steve Calhoun, who's been his quarterback's coach, a mentor, a friend since he was 14, 15 years old. So they recorded a podcast. Steve has his own podcast, Armed and Dangerous. And then Jordan just wanted to get a workout in real quick before he had to fly out. Training camp wasn't a day or two, I believe, and wanted to sneak in one more workout. So it was just Jordan Love and Steve Calhoun. Usually they have receivers. There's somebody else there to run routes, and Steve can kind of line up guys, and he films it. He films everything, but for whatever reason, he didn't film this workout. So we're taking the recollection straight from Steve Calhoun. I will say this: nobody's harder on Jordan Love than Steve. He keeps it real, whether it's on our podcast or right to Jordan. He can be ruthless. So basically what he did is stand at various points on the field, and had Jordan Love simulate certain drops, plays. All right, the defense is in this coverage. They're sending this blitz. It's all versus air, but Jordan has to simulate it. And I'm sure you've seen those clips where he's working on something with Steve Calhoun, and then you see it in the game. So he's had 3 years to perfect this whole playing against air situation. So he just directed Jordan Love what to do. He'd stand at these various parts of the field, 5 yards away, 10, 15, 20, 30, and he'd hold his hands, over his shoulder here or back here. Let's pretend a defender's right here, and you got to place it right here. And the accuracy, Peter, according to Steve Calhoun, was unbelievable. He struggled to even put it into words how pinpoint accurate Jordan Love was, throw to throw to throw to throw. And I just chuckle because I was a high school quarterback back in the day. I know everybody wants to hear what we did back in the day, but I can remember being in the backyard with my dad and my dad doing the same thing, like right here, Ty, right here. And my ball would tend to maybe, spray over his head from time to time.
I did the swinging tire because I was a quarterback too, but I did the swinging tire. And so you try and swing it through the swinging tire. Yeah.
It was basically like Steph Curry walking into a gymnasium and just drilling 30, 40 threes in a row. So at that point, Steve Calhoun was like, holy hell, everything we did all offseason worked. And we get into all of that in the story. It's at golongtee.com. Just, we tend to write about Jordan Love from time to time here, but figured ahead of this season, we would try to do exactly the way you described it. Like, what's next for this quarterback? And one of the many things that they worked on was not hopping around, not wasting motion back there. He made a lot of plays doing that kind of stuff, off the back foot, hopping 6, 7, 8 inches off the turf. And, if he can just be in rhythm, be purposeful, decisive, Steve Calhoun, I'm sure Matt LaFleur, everybody on staff, Tom Clements believes that he can even reach a whole nother level. So to answer your question, yes, that workout was one that Steve will always remember.
Well, and I love that was where you started here, because to me, that sets up everything else. When you watch JT O'Sullivan, for example, break down Jordan Love, even when he's lauding a throw or a read or whatever it is, he'll go, I really wish he'd just get his cleats in the ground and go. Sometimes he'll get up on his tiptoes. It robs him of his power. And that is one of those things where if you want consistency, you have to play with a consistent base. Now, you want to do that while not taking away from someone like Jordan Love the ability to just play and freelance and just wing it too. And so there's this line that they have to balance, but consistency seems like this is the theme here. How can he find consistency? And you got from a number of people, from Romeo Dobbs, David Yost, his old offensive coordinator, his old coach at Utah State, who said consistency is going to be the thing that carries Jordan, because he makes a mistake one time and then he corrects it.
Yeah. I think that's probably his greatest strength. I mean, there's a lot to love about Jordan Love, but it's that ability to screw up once, not even screw up, see something once and never get fooled again. And I'm going to pull it up here just so I don't tell you the wrong thing. But, one of the coaches there in Green Bay brought up this game where the defense that they were facing, they would hold their shell coverage until the last split second. Like it was a really disciplined defense where you've got 2 safeties back and they wait until that last split second to drop somebody down. I feel like so much success as a quarterback is determining, all right, do they got 1 deep safety or 2 deep? And if they got 1 deep, there's a big play to be had probably. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, remember how he would just eat that alive in 2011? I mean, I don't know why teams played him single high so much that MVP season. He would just feast. I remember sitting in that press box thinking, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's just going to go deep here. But anyways, Jordan Love saw I believe on the tablet that the linebacker was just like a smidge out of position pre-snap. So that kind of told him, all right, somebody must be kind of rolling down to that C gap, because there's no way that the defense can stay in the shell look if the linebacker's cheating to that degree. So he sees this once and he's not fooled again. I think a lot of young quarterbacks, when you see or even hear Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, right? He kind of said the quiet part out loud. That's what it is. A young quarterback in that game just gets stuck and gets punked start to finish, because that coordinator and that defense know they're in his head. They can't figure out what you're doing. That's what tells me Jordan Love is here to stay. I get it. Defense has had a whole offseason, 6-7 months to study Jordan Love. But Jordan Love had 6-7 months to study himself and figure out where he needs to improve, like the jumping around with his fundamentals. But also schematically, all right, what are they going to do to me now? Like what? And then when they do it, all right, I'm going to see it. I'll go to the sideline. I'll correct it. And I'll get back out there. And he's got exceptional coaches. We could talk about Tom Clements for an hour here, really. I mean, the work he's done, he doesn't want any credit. The thing I love about Tom Clements, and I appreciate over time covering the Packers on the beat day to day. Man, what a curmudgeon, right? He hated that part of the job. He didn't want anything to do with the media. He'd give you nothing, right? Just absolutely nothing. And over time, I just really have grown to respect that about Tom Clements, because there's a lot of self-serving assistants and coordinators out there who just can't wait to play that media game, and we'll play, right? We want to learn more about football. He's just about quarterback play and the nitty-gritty and helping a young quarterback grow and improve. And I think that's really what he's done with Jordan Love.
More to come with Tyler Dunne here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long to-do list for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for your house. I've got 2 little kids. I have limited time to get everything done. I got to hang some curtains later. When you get your supplies for your project, do not forget the most essential supply, which is a 5 Hour Energy shot. 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give them that alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy, hectic day. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy products today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid only until September 30th. So get going. One order cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. That still leaves you a lot of stuff to go get. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. Get daily insight on the best fantasy draft strategies. Once your league starts, they're scouring the waiver wire for you, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, and he had to be patient. There had to be a maturation process for Jordan Love. And I was smiling to myself, kind of feeling like a dope, because I'm reading these quotes from Brett Favre, who you have in the story here, talking about, celebrate with your guys, but don't be barking at them. Like, that's not going to fly. If they don't like you, they're not going to ride with you. And he didn't say the name Aaron Rodgers, but anyone reading immediately thinks of that name, right? And Brett and Aaron have become friends. They buried the hatchet since the whole, hey, old man and grandpa stuff from early on in their career. But it did strike me as sort of funny to hear Brett Favre say this, because he was the ultimate locker room guy. Everyone, until the end, when he, we got a little too old for everyone and he's by himself and he's in his old locker. But I just thought one of the reasons why, if you're going to bank on Jordan Love finding consistency, it's this reason. He is so even keeled. He's not going to bark at guys when they're down and you have a coach or someone in the organization. You didn't say who it was. When they're down 17-0 to New Orleans, he's the same guy. He didn't get rattled. He's unflappable. And that's one of those things. If you're going to bank on the consistency, that's got to be the reason why, right? Because he's just not, it's not going to phase him. Throwing an interception to end the season is not going to phase him.
And it's not cliche, because it does phase a lot of young quarterbacks, whether they show it or not.
Honestly, how could it not?
Completely. I think you see it all the time. And I'm trying to think of an example. Look right in the division. Look at a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky, who takes the Chicago Bears to the playoffs. I mean, they should have won that game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
And then they would have played a Rams team that they beat the snot out of in the regular season. Vic Fangio, that game plan that he used against the Rams is what Bill Belichick used in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. That defense was special. A formula was in place. Say what you want about Trubisky. That year, the rapport he had with Allen Robinson, they had a formula. Long story short, we wrote about this over the offseason too in a Bears series, but Matt Nagy and the coaching staff, they believe in Mitch Trubisky. They actually had higher grades on Trubisky than the personnel staff that had drafted him. So they believe that this is somebody that can win you a Super Bowl. What happens? He brings in Brad Childress, Matt Nagy does, who's been a father figure, a mentor, a right-hand man for him over the years. And Childress just convinces Matt Nagy that you can't win with this guy. He's toast. Look at these different test scores from all these different things. This is what you're seeing on the field. At some point over the long off season, you talk about these 6-7 months, they matter. The coaches just flipped on the quarterback, and they get to training camp. And I was told from multiple people that Nagy is just riding Trubisky over nothing really. The practices were ugly. He was going against a really good defense too, but after a couple mistakes, just on him and on him and on him. And the season starts and his confidence is already shot. He had a terrible game against Green Bay in week 1, and he just never really recovered. And he I think internally, Mitch Trubisky felt like he didn't have the confidence of the Bears, and he was right. But also, to play a little devil's advocate to our point here, I think there's young quarterbacks that might be able to plow through something like that, and there's some that aren't. And Trubisky was thrown out there a lot earlier than Jordan Love, and his story is way different. But I just think that Jordan Love, 3 years of waiting, getting this opportunity, everything he went through in life outside of football is, a trillion times more consequential than anything he could see on a football field. He genuinely isn't going to be shaken by anything bad that happens. And like Brett Favre said, it's not for everybody. I think some people probably would like him to go full Favre and tackle a teammate or full Aaron Rodgers. When things are going bad and you're a fan at home and you're pissed off, maybe you do want to see him just start, swearing.
When you call an RPO and a receiver, no receivers run the route, and it's just sort of like, guys, we can't, we're trying to win a game here. No, you can't do this. I know you're a rookie, but you can't not run the route when you have a route called. That's ridiculous. But so there is this finding this line, and I think my favorite line in the whole story, and there's a lot of good stuff in here, is a line from Brett Favre, and it was. You mentioned the 49ers throw. Favre goes, been there. And anyone who's watched the Packers for any length of time goes, yeah, we know, Brett. But he says there's a lot of quarterbacks over the years that were super smart that never would make that throw and never even made the playoffs. And I just thought, isn't that why coaching is an art, not a science? Because there is going to be a fear, I think, of wanting to coach out. If you have a stallion, you don't want to break him so that he doesn't ride like a stallion at some point. You don't want him to be so, scared to make a mistake or so robotic that he feels like he can't go into playmaker mode. The reason everyone loved Brett Favre until they didn't is because they knew he was either going to win the game or he was going to lose it trying his damnedest to win the game. And I think if there's one criticism, even the hardcore Aaron Rodgers fans will have, it's that there seemed to be times when the Packers were down where Rodgers was more concerned about throwing an interception than he was with trying to win the game. And Jordan Love may have found the balance. That may be the key to, if he can find that balance, then, and look, please don't get mad at me, but if he can find that balance, maybe he can have the success in the postseason that the other two guys before him didn't. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that seems like the skeleton key to me, to find that balance.
I'm with you 100%, Peter. I think that he is the quarterback who can somehow find that balance because, look, Brett Favre was never going to be anybody but Brett Favre.
Yeah.
To the end, right?
And Packer fans loved him for that for 17 years.
And I'm sure they loved it, when he faced the New Orleans Saints and, saw Sidney Rice in the
This ain't Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Which, by the way, to bring it full circle, Brad Childress probably shouldn't escape criticism from his job that day in that game.
You're right.
Brutal game management from the head coach. But Favre is going to be Favre. You just knew he was never going to fully change, even when Mike McCarthy came in and did kind of rein him in, discipline him to an extent. Ted Thompson drafted so well. There's some parallels there too. Drafting all those receivers that were young and ascending helped Favre that 2007 season and then helped Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers was never really going to change, right? He had his way of doing things, and it won a Super Bowl. It won 4 MVPs. His passer rating was always right up there. But you just knew that he probably wasn't going to gun it into tight coverage when things are on the line. And what happens in the playoffs? Everything gets tighter. I mean, defensive coordinators, they save all their best stuff for the playoffs. You get into the red zone and there's not a lot of space to work with. The windows are so razor thin. I mean, that's what makes Patrick Mahomes so special. And I'm just thinking of that San Francisco 49ers divisional playoff game. I'm going to do a story on Rasul Douglas here, go long. We chatted in Buffalo, and man, he was just shaking his head thinking about that game that got away. It pains him to this day. He's dead set certain that Packers team wins the Super Bowl. There were moments in that game. It just seemed like Rodgers was kind of apathetic, maybe a little strong, but that's kind of the way his play style looks when you're not taking those chances. Same thing with the play-in game against Detroit. I think Jordan Love isn't really either one of those. I mean, it's early. The sample size is very, very small, but it does seem like he's somewhere in the middle. I think what helps though too, and you mentioned kind of relating to teammates and guys wanting to play for you on the field. A lot of that has to do with guys being your own age. There's a lot of 23, 24, 25-year-olds that have been with Jordan Love, not just in the regular season, not just training camp. They're with him in OTAs, mini camp. They're with him in the off season. They're in Orange County with Steve Calhoun doing all this group is tight. It's by design. No, Brian Gutekunst drafted all these young receivers, but I do think that having no clear number one, right? This is a topic of conversation that Matt LaFleur doesn't want to dig into it. I don't blame him.
He doesn't want to lose his lunch over it. That's for sure.
He's got a point. Like, there's no true number one, but that is a magnificent thing in this offense. And I think that kind of can steer you out of trouble. Also, if you're Jordan Love. I mean, Brett Favre had Sterling Sharp, which was amazing, but this is somebody who didn't know what a nickel defense was, didn't give a damn. I mean, the Lions throw in the wild card. We've talked about that. Like, guys are lined up wrong. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. He just knows Sterling Sharp's down there somewhere and he's going to chuck it to him. Jordan Love is growing up in a very disciplined offense that still requires him to take some chances. And Favre's point is a good one. You want a quarterback that's going to take those chances. Otherwise, you're Alex Smith had some good moments. Tyrod Taylor, good quarterback, checking it down, dinking and dunking. Doesn't have that umph to him to just gun it in there. Jordan Love has it, and he's smart enough to know where to go with the football. Hey, the headline of the story is Jordan Love's going to be an all-time great, so I'm not going to be hedging any bets. I think that this guy's special, and he'll win one Super Bowl and probably more.
Yeah. All right, we'll finish up with Ty in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The ultimate formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now go listen to Locked On Fantasy Football. Get daily insights on the best draft strategies so you can win your league this season. You can also find the link to Locked On Fantasy Football in the description, so you don't even need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I wanted to ask you about that on sort of a fundamental level, but maybe we'll talk about it offline because maybe it's just a question just for me that I think is interesting. But let me ask it for you this way for the audience. If Jordan Love if he doesn't become the next in line, why, to your mind, would that be? What is the pessimistic case against Jordan Love? We spent 19 minutes in, and all we've done is gush. So tell me why he wouldn't get to where you and I both think he can get to.
The obvious answer would be injuries, and you don't even want to speak that into existence. But I don't think that's a major concern for Jordan Love. Mike Tannenbaum made this point where he's big and sturdy and athletic, right? He's not a sitting duck. Yeah, so he can shrug guys off in the pocket in a Josh Allen, Roethlisberger way, maybe not to that extreme, but he's also athletic enough to avoid it. So if there's something that holds him back, maybe it is I think he's got B+ to A- gifts kind of across the board, where he's athletic and he's got a strong arm, but it's not a Favre arm, not a Rodgers arm. But even David Yost said, like, I had forgotten about this. Like, Aaron Rodgers out of Cal was not known for arm strength. And he was talking to scouts in the NFL who said, man, this arm isn't that great. And now he's got maybe the best arm in NFL history. So arm strength can improve. But at least right now, I think Jordan Love is like really, 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 really good.
He's not in that Josh Allen far,
but maybe there's not that one
tier.
Right. Right. At least right now, there isn't like one specific element of his game that you can point to and say, like, holy shit, like Josh Allen throwing it over the mountains, or Kyler Murray just darting all over the place, or Lamar Jackson running away from you.
And he's not Drew Brees accurate. There is, but and look, not to really gild the lily on this, but you know who else was like that? Tom Brady. Like, what was I've said this for years. What was his elite trait other than just he was clutch as hell? That was it. And so what I'm saying is,
hey, you asked me to make the case.
Listen,
him.
I know. And then I bring in like the guy who everyone thinks is the greatest of all time. But
Tom Brady did come up in this story, I must say. He
did. And that's what Mike Tannenbaum, like, who had up close and personal look at Tom Brady for a long time. I think I'll answer my own question and just say, I wonder if that the 49er thing, if that crops up, like Josh Allen in the playoffs, if he just it hasn't really been an issue in the playoffs, but like he hasn't had the success in the playoffs either. And so I just that could be the thing that derails him. Like there's one or two bad decisions or loose throws in big moments that just derails them. And this is hard, Ty. Like, I think we underestimate how hard it is when Lamar Jackson's won 2 MVPs. He's never even really been close to winning a Super Bowl. Like that game in Kansas City was technically close. Did you ever think the Ravens were going to win that football game? No. And so that it's hard. And so to get to that level, there really is. It's just these little things here and there. And so to your point, and this is why you wrote the story, if he's leveled up from where he was last year, that's a guy who, to Mike Sando's conversation yesterday, can be a tier 1 guy. And those guys, I mean, if you read the story, there's only 3 of them in the league, according to NFL decision makers. If Jordan Love can be one of those guys, he gives the Packers a chance to win the Super Bowl every single year. And if you're a Packer fan, that's all you want, right? That's all you want.
And I think that's what it comes down to. But Tom Brady did not have that one elite physical trait.
People are going to kill us for this, Ty.
Hey, bring it on, man. I know. It's just one of those funny. It's just funny things. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. He just knew mentally where your vulnerability was, play to play. So he's making the right play. It's almost like, I can remember playing ping pong back in the day against my brother, and he had a lot more patience than me, and he would just wait for me to screw up. It was just like, and I just want to slam it.
That was the whole Patriots dynasty.
That's what Tom Brady does. He just waits for you to mess up in coverage, have one minor lapse, and he attacks. And so Mike Tannenbaum, as you referenced, he's running the Jets from 2006 to 2012, the Dolphins from 2015 to 2018. He's very familiar with Tom Brady. Right. And he's saying, and what drove him nuts, like, nothing you do schematically really matters, because he's going to find your soft spot. And here's what he said. Please subscribe. Go along to t.com to read the whole thing. Quote, and that's what I saw with Love. You could tell he knew where to go with it, and he was so accurate. and that really becomes indefensible, the game really slowed down for him. Our saying with Brady was make him make the decision post-snap, and I think that's what you're going to really have to work on with Jordan, and that's why I think he's just going to get better. We've seen him improve, and I think that's only going to get better and better. Jordan loves a better athlete, and that's the part that's really intriguing. So yeah, sprinkle. So he's basically Tom Brady, but with athleticism. I think that's the takeaway from the show, right?
That's the clip. That's the clip we're going to use. That's going to be on social media. So I just hope you're ready for that. And Ty, we always appreciate the time, man. Go Long TD is the site. You're the best. I appreciate it.
Any day, any time, Peter. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks to Ty for joining the show. Always great to be with him. Go subscribe to Go Long if you don't already. Go subscribe to The Leap if you don't already. And next week, by the time we are back, it will be week 1. We will be talking about week freaking 1. The Packers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. An ugly situation there right now. Wildfires, air quality is really bad. Hopefully things get better there, not just for the Packers and the Eagles' sake, the fans, that's separate right now. We hope that the people in Brazil are okay. And hopefully if there is any adjustments, that those adjustments are made with the safety of everyone involved at the top of that list. Back next week. For those of you who are new here, our Monday show is usually our recap. We don't have a recap. Of course, there's no game. Expert Tuesday. How you doing on Wednesday, opponent Thursday, and our new thing, starting about last year, maybe a little before that, is we try to have interviews to set you up on Friday, and then we'll go live after the game. We will be live on Friday, a bonus pod after the game on Friday night, so you can stay locked on Packers.